Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Ewart. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Today is International Women's Day, and we're looking at how women are stepping up in different sectors despite the many challenges they face. A Rwandan banking executive tells us how women are breaking barriers in the financial sector by building financial safety net for their families. And U.S. President Joe Biden delivers his third State of the Union address and highlights the importance of defending democracy at home and around the world. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin our broadcast this Friday with the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Gutterz delivering a message for International Women's Day under the theme, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate women and girls around the world, and we applaud all they have achieved in the fight for equality. Women and girls have made great gains, demolishing barriers, dismantling stereotypes, and driving progress towards a more just and equal world. Yet they face immense obstacles. Billions of women and girls face marginalization, injustice, and discrimination, while the persistent epidemic of violence against women disgraces humanity. Our world still reflects millennia of male-dominated power relations, and progress is under attack with a fierce backlash against women's rights. At our current rate, legal equality is some 300 years away. We must move much faster. On International Women's Day, we stand with women and girls fighting for their rights, and we commit to accelerating progress. This year's theme, Invest in Women, reminds us that ending the patriarchy requires money on the table. We must support women's organizations on the front line, and we must invest in programs to end violence against women and to drive women's inclusion and leadership in economies, digital technologies, peace building, and climate action. This all depends on unlocking finance for sustainable development so that countries have funds available to invest in women and girls. We also need to increase the number of women leaders in business, finance, central banks, and finance ministries. This can help drive investments in policies and programs that respond to women and girls' needs. Women's rights are a proven path to fair, peaceful, prosperous societies. It is good for us all. Together, let's take urgent action to make it a reality, and I thank you.
That was United Nations Secretary General Antonio Gutterz. It's been 32 years since Fatuma and her family arrived at Kenya's Dadaab refugee camp after fleeing civil war in Somalia. Despite challenges, she has attended school and went on to lead a group of women in generating income to support their families. On this International Women's Day, we feature Diriye's story and others of endurance and resilience. Saida Swale reports from Kenya.
When Fatuma came to the Dadaab refugee camp in Kenya in 1992, she saw few opportunities to thrive and knew something had to be done.
Here in the refugee setup, there's no chance to get work, and the people, they don't have capital to start business for their own. We came with an idea, since most of us had family, and let us work together and at least produce something which we can sell and get income later.
That led to the birth of the group Nyota for Samo, Swahili and Somali words meaning star and handwork, at the Hagadera refugee camp. Fatuma is one of the founders and now serves as the chairperson of this collective of about 50 women from the refugee and host community who come together daily.
Doing both weaving and...
Here they learnt basket weaving and how to make tie and dye prints for dresses and headscarves. Their products sell for about $15 to $20. Although they were helping to take care of their families and community, some of the women faced the sting of cultural norms.
Some of our women here, their husbands are not comfortable of doing this work because he's saying, you go every morning and you come evening, I don't know what you are doing.
It is such situations that lay foundation of spaces such as this one, a women's center where they can learn new skills such as tailoring, baking, tie and dye, soap making and even farming of drought-resistant crops.
IRC, together with our partners, construct to create a safe space for women and girls. Despite all the challenges that they may be going through, all the traumas that they may have experienced, they have a space where they can come and call their own.
Halima Mahmood came to this space after she completed primary school and her family couldn't afford to send her to high school. She is now a mentor in a program called Girls Shine, spending her free time speaking to other young women about safety and making informed life choices.
We normally inform the younger girls, like anyone who is willing, like to go back to school.
The Dadaab refugee complex is made of 3 camps, Hagadera, Dagahale and Ifo. War in Somalia and a regional drought have pushed the number of residents higher in the recent years, causing an influx in the camps. Kenya's Department of Refugee Services manages the camps, supported by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. UNHCR says more than half of the refugees under the age of 59 are women.
We engage, first of all, to understand both the national, county and sub-county legal regime that facilitates the empowerment of women. We work together to ensure that those practices that inevitably lead to the discrimination of the girl child or the women are not carried on.
As the world commemorates the International Women's Day, for the women here at Dadaab, the work of women's spaces and groups such as Nyota Farsamo helps them become more resilient and able to look to the future.
At least you have to be strong women to overcome the problem in life.
The age consideration for skills uptake for the young girls and women ensures that once all is said and done, for the young girls, they are encouraged to remain in school, and for the women, they're empowered to face the future. Saida Swale, VOA News, Dadaab, Kenya.
As the world commemorates International Women's Day, VOA spoke to women in Nigeria to get their thoughts on what the day means to them.
The International Women's Day, which holds on the 8th of March every year, is very significant to me because for me, women need the opportunity to really express themselves and bring their talents and giftings to the table. They need the opportunity to be able to impact the lives that are around them, and they need that support. So for me, the International Women's Day is a dedicated time for women to actually express themselves.
The International Women's Day is very important. It's very, 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 very important because women are so important, so unique. Women are wonderfully made. How will I say, without women, I don't think there will be this earth. Yes, there is no human being without women, so it's a great day.
It's very important because on this kind of a day, is a day that is being set aside to celebrate women worldwide, which is very, very important to celebrate, at least to know the worth. For us to know the worth of women in the society.
These days, you see women even winning in the movie industry and in all spheres of life. So it's important to appreciate women. We go through a lot as women, so it's a very good thing to appreciate women in the society today.
Well, it empowers women. It brings more women together to socialize, to talk, to advise yourself on things concerning this society.
Women in Nigeria telling us what International Women's Day means to them. In an interview on Voice of America television alongside Leila Soltani, Director of the Persian Division, Ayesha Tanzim, Director of the South and Central Asia Division, Nadia Majid, Director of South Asia Pacific Division, VOA's Africa Division Chief, Salwa Jafari, spoke about navigating leadership as a woman.
As a manager, quite frankly, for me, I treat women in my newsroom or in my certain division as I want to be treated. And we're actually in a good position to determine what I want, like what is the things that I should avoid and what things to look for in behaviors in other managers, for instance. So I can easily spot like behaviors that are not pro-women, that can lead to a problem, etc. So I feel like we're in a good position to kind of determine what is the best way to manage people. But I treat women as I treat everybody else, and that's how I want to be treated, which is respect and equality. We want, I mean, the world would be so much better if we just stick to that. Let's treat women and men with equality the same exact way.
Voice of America Africa Division Chief Salwa Jafari speaking about navigating leadership as a woman. Studies show that one of the main challenges contributing to financial exclusion for women in Africa is the existing gender gap in access to banking services. As one of the few top female banking executives in Africa, Patience Mutesi, Managing Director of Rwanda's BPR Bank, tells VOA's Jackson Vunganyi that financial exclusion limits women's ability to save, invest, and build a financial safety net for their families.
It was very evident to me, being part of a family where my mom was running a small business, how difficult it is for women particularly to access financing. But beyond that, women, refugees, it's even more complicated for them to be able to access financial services. So from the outset, at a very young age, it was evident to me that there is need for us to have a more concerted effort to supporting women in business, but particularly those that are naturally left out of financial inclusion. So it's something that I have grown really passionate about.
Now, in your experience as one of the few female leaders of a banking institution, of a financial institution, have you seen any unique contributions or challenges that women executives bring to the pursuit of financial inclusion?
Absolutely. There's a lot of studies that have been done to show that having women in leadership in financial institutions brings a broad range of benefits. But number one is the power of innovation, because of that diversity in perspectives. You know, in most of our countries, you have a population of at least 50-50 women to men. But naturally, if you have men leading financial institutions, the kind of products and services that will be provided will be more suited for men. So having women in leading financial institutions means they bring on that perspective of what makes products and services, financial products and services, more accessible to women. So that is something that we see on a daily basis. But number two is also, how do we then attract talent? Because financial services really require that both women and men put in a lot of time. And so you will see that for most banks or microfinances, at entry level, you have so many women or so many girls coming in. But as you go up the ladder, there's so many that are then left out. And there has to be a reason for that.
So what are some of the barriers of them, you know, migrating up?
Some of the barriers are naturally that there is a lot of time that is required in banking, and so once women start to have children, the balance between their career, their professional lives and their family lives then becomes very difficult, and so they opt to kind of stay within what they know, the comfort zone, because they cannot put in so much more time. And so we have been challenging ourselves as women executives to say, what is it that we can do to make sure that we deliberately grow women and girls within this career path? And if you have men at the top, they will not be thinking that. So that's one of the other things that brings. The third benefit that comes with it is increased profitability. Because of the way decisions are made, because of the level of accountability, there have been endless studies that have shown that institutions that are led by women are able to present a lot more profitability. There's a study that was done by BCG that I would encourage you also to look at. Profitability also increases. But beyond that, economically, economic growth is much more, there's a lot more contribution to economic growth in areas where there is women.
That was Patience Mutesi, Managing Director of Rwanda's BPR Bank, speaking with VOA's Jackson Mvunganyi. U.S. President Joe Biden used his third State of the Union speech to announce a dramatic measure to facilitate aid into Gaza, push funding for Ukraine's war efforts, and to warn the country of the threat posed by Donald Trump, his likely opponent in the November presidential election. VOA's White House Bureau Chief Patsy Widakuswara has more.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Like many American presidents in the last year of their first term, President Joe Biden delivered his State of the Union address with a key goal in mind: to convince the American people he deserves 4 more years.
Tonight, we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger.
He addressed voters' concerns about his age and mental acuity, turning it into an attack against former President Donald Trump, the presumptive Republican nominee he's likely to face in the November election.
The issue facing our nation isn't how old we are, it's how old our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. But you can't lead America with ancient ideas.
While it's not technically a campaign speech, Biden had a clear message to voters. Trump is a dire threat to democracy. The president invoked the January 6, 2021 storming of the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters seeking to overturn Biden's victory in the 2020 election.
My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that.
As Israel's military campaign raged in Gaza, Biden announced a dramatic measure to deliver much-needed aid for Palestinians.
Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground.
It's unclear whether the plan will be enough to appease progressive Democrats, Arab and Muslim Americans outraged by Biden's unyielding support of Israel. Hundreds protested outside while he spoke. Biden underscored Israel's right to self-defense against Hamas while calling for a temporary ceasefire and the release of hostages held by the militant group. And in a rare rebuke to Israel, he expressed frustration over the lack of aid and the 30,000 death toll in Gaza.
To the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, the only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time.
Biden's foreign policy goals have been overshadowed by House Republicans' obstruction of a Senate-approved $95 billion foreign aid package to help Ukraine in its fight against Russia. Biden urged them to pass the bill.
My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple: we will not walk away.
Biden urged Congress to pass a bill on immigration and border security, a key issue for American voters. He laid the blame for the deadlock on Republicans and Trump, accusing them of exploiting the border as a political issue.
We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it. I'm ready to fix it.
He vowed to protect the right to abortion and in vitro fertility treatment, a top concern for Democrats amid conservative states restricting access.
Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away?
Biden also touted his policies, calling the American economy the envy of the world. He laid out a progressive economic agenda targeting corporate America and the wealthy.
No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse.
Alabama Senator Katie Britt delivered the Republican response.
President Biden just doesn't get it. He's out of touch. Under his administration, families are worse off, our communities are less safe, and our country is less secure.
The data shows the economy has exceeded expectations, but inflation remains a major concern of voters, creating a potential weakness for Biden ahead of the election. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News, Washington.
For more perspective on President Biden's State of the Union address, I'm joined live via Skype from here in Washington by Todd Belt, Professor and Director of Political Management at George Washington University. Hello, Todd.
Hi, it's great to be with you again.
Right. What would you say were the top 3 takeaways from President Biden's State of the Union address last night?
Right. I think the top 3 takeaways are that Joe Biden tried to take on the age issue, and he did that from a performative standpoint by the way that he was really trying to be vigorous in the way he presented himself. He also tried to make clear distinctions between himself and Donald Trump. While he didn't use Donald Trump's name, he did talk about his predecessor several times. I think it was close to 20. And then he was also taking on the issue of immigration. This is the third thing. Immigration has really been a weak area for Joe Biden. Lots of people, including the Republicans, have tried to make it an issue. But they did have a compromise bargain, and he turned it around on the Republicans. He's trying to use this immigration issue against Republicans when they have used it against him. And he did that by ticking off all of the items that were in that compromise bill that was then pulled off the floor because of, or was voted against, I should say, because of the influence of Donald Trump.
Well, you mentioned the immigration issue, which has been pretty contentious here, but also in her remarks, Republican Senator Kate Britt praised, raised it also, and also said, quote, "Our commander-in-chief is not in command." What stood out in her remarks?
Right. What stood out in her remarks is that it really kind of didn't match what we saw out of Joe Biden. Of course, she wrote her speech before Joe Biden gave his. And when you looked at how she presented herself, it was like she was, on the verge of tears and crying about the state of the nation. And it was really in contrast to what we saw from Joe Biden. She was trying to, make more about the issue that he's not able to be commander-in-chief, that he's lost his ability to be able to do the work of the presidency. And we really didn't see that tonight. So her words kind of rang hollow in juxtaposition with what we saw from Joe Biden.
Would you say the president made his case to the American voters to re-elect him to continue with the second term?
I think he really tried. And this is what we usually see out of a State of the Union address during the last year before an election for a first-term candidate. And that is, they say, well, we got something done, send me back and I will get the rest of it done. And send me back with a Congress from my own party is what the other message is. And Joe Biden did that tonight by talking about what the Republicans have stood in the way of and the plans he has for a second term. So in that regard, Joe Biden really was making the case. This isn't supposed to be a political speech. It's not supposed to be a campaign speech. But of course, in an election year, everybody is worried about November.
Todd, many thanks for your insight on the State of the Union address.
Thank you.
Todd Belt is a professor and director of political management at George Washington University. Still to come, timeless live studio recording featuring 3 women. We'll be right back.
On March 8, the world will celebrate International Women's Day under the theme Inspire Inclusion, emphasizing the importance of diversity and gender equity in all aspects of society. On this week's edition of Our Voices, we will discuss what it means to truly inspire inclusion, how to speak up against gender bias, and how to forge a better world where women are empowered to innovate, lead, and inspire future generations. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
When it comes to the entertainment business, it does not get any bigger than Disney.
Leaving an indelible print on networks including BET, ABC, and CNN.
Robert has always been about helping people.
If somebody tells you that there's no bias in the industry, they'd be lying.
Robert takes any and everybody that works for him under their wing.
And we had a pretty young staff at BET. They were very talented. I think the average age back then was in and around 25 years old.
Giving young people opportunities, helping them to discover pathways.
Every day I try to take advantage of being here on Earth and doing something positive because I know I was given another chance.
In other news on this International Women's Day, the United Nations Children's Fund has issued a new report revealing that over 230 million women and girls have undergone female genital mutilation, most of whom live in Africa. UNICEF says, however, the percentage of women and girls who experience FGM is declining. Gunmen in northwest Nigeria have kidnapped more than 200 students during a raid on a school, according to a teacher and local residents. Local government officials in Kaduna State confirmed the kidnapping attack on Kuriga School on Thursday. Kidnappings for ransom are common in Nigeria. And on a visit to Mozambique's northern Cabo Delgado province, Filippo Grandi, the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees, sounded the alarm over 780,000 displaced people, mostly due to a 7-year insurgency by a jihadi group that has thrown the north of the country into turmoil. And in our entertainment report, in honor of International Women's Day, let's enjoy this timeless live studio recording featuring Caris Fosso Dobeg Nahore and Manu Gallo.
Chilomje pour que va kepte me pingla abu gongo to golom je pense so bontagana ho ta kalom je jona te pour que va kepte me pingla ngawungo godame ngawungo kayombe ya chilomje Gayambe ya chilomje Gayambe ya chilomje baba Gayambe ya chilomje mama oh Gayambe ya chilomje
That was the music of Caris Fosso Dobeg Nahore and Manu Gallo. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voanews.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.